Corey, I'm gonna start off with you with this one, right?
All right.
Up and down. NFL has been up and down right now. Just like my fantasy, it's been down. Down, down, down. It's terrible, man. I just got to figure it out. So Corey, you're gonna do the up, right? NFL season has been interesting for the first 3 weeks. The Raiders, the Broncos, and the Panthers are all 3-0. Now, Corey, which teams are gonna make the playoffs and which teams don't out of those three?
Out of those three, I think one of those teams makes the playoffs, and I think the Broncos are the most likely to do so. Von Miller has looked really good in his return from injury this year. The Broncos defense on the whole has looked really good. They're still going to get Bradley Chubb back halfway through the season. Their offense has been good enough under Teddy Bridgewater. I believe I mentioned it on here before, but I think this Broncos team is built, or the offense, or the team is built similarly to how the Saints were when Bridgewater started for them. They've got a good defense, some good skill position talent. Bridgewater doesn't have to do it all. He just has to kind of manage the game. Now, granted, full acknowledge the Broncos have not had the toughest schedules to start the season, to say the least. I think the game against Baltimore this Sunday will really show kind of where this Bronco team stands on the whole. So, my opinion on this could drastically change after that game on Sunday. But out of the three, I think they're the team I trust the most. The Raiders and Panthers also have pretty brutal schedules to finish up the season. And while, I did going into the year, I've expected the Panthers to be contending for a playoff spot. I still think they're probably 1 year, one off season away from really having a team together to be able to do that. And honestly, I think the Raiders have overachieved so far this year. And at some point, I would expect them to come back to their median. So, I think the Broncos have a really good shot at getting in. Not so much confidence in the Raiders and Panthers this year.
I want to hear what you say on this one. You got the Raiders, Broncos, and Panthers are 3-0. Which teams are going to make the playoffs and which teams do not? Way too early.
I think the Raiders are already out. I'm not confident in them. I like the start. I think they started off really, really well. A big win, first game of the season. Against the Ravens, and then they just won their other two games as well. So I think they've started out really well. But going forward, I just really don't believe in the Raiders. I didn't believe in them before the season started. I still don't believe in them. So it's pretty much down to the Broncos and Panthers. The Panthers, they've had a soft schedule as well so far. I think the Saints was the toughest team, obviously, and they shut them down. It was at home, but looking back at the history of the last 5 seasons against the Saints, they've been 2-8 against the Saints. They haven't beaten the Saints at home since 2016. So 5 years ago, you got to look at that. And I mean, obviously, they didn't have Marshawn Lattimore. They didn't have a bunch of coaches calling up the plays on offense. And obviously, there's no Breeze back there. But still, they dominated them after the Saints just dominated Green Bay. So I said before when we did the breakdowns of the teams that the first 9 games for the Panthers, I think, are all winnable for the most part. Obviously now no Christian McCaffrey. It's going to hurt them, especially against Dallas, because I think Dallas is playing really well, especially on defense. And then you look at just no J.C. Horn. They did go out and trade for C.J. Henderson from Jacksonville, who was the 8th pick last year in the draft. So I thought that was a good sign. They also did get A.J. Bouye back, or get him with the team. That should help them out. But, I think if they can get through these first 9 games with losing maybe 1 or 2 games, I think that kind of sets them up. They, like Corey said, the last 7 games are going to be tough. So it's not going to be no easy cakewalk to end the season. I think they need to get Sam Darnold going a little bit more. But, I guess if I had to pick a team, it would probably be the Broncos. I think they're in a tough division. They haven't played anybody at all. their combined 0-9 record for the first 3 teams that they played. So that's not nothing to be like, okay, yeah, this team's great at. But they beat who's on the schedule. The only thing about it is, I guess, if you look at the strength of schedule, they had one of the toughest strengths of schedule to end the season. Granted, it's only 3 games in, so you really don't know that it could float. It's a floating list. So next week they might have one of the easier ones or something like that, depending on what the records are. So I do think, for what it's worth, Teddy Bridgewater's playing well. They don't have Jerry Jeudy. He's out. The defense is really good, just like Carolina's defense. Carolina's 1, Denver's 2. Like Core said, this is going to be a big test for them going against Baltimore. I think if they can get past Baltimore, or at least have a good showing against Baltimore, it's going to say a lot for this team. The only thing about it is that kind of puts me off is that they are in a tougher division than the NFC South, because they have, obviously, I don't think Kansas City's done, even though they're 1-2. The Raiders, like I said, are undefeated, and you have the Chargers, who are 2-1. So, and I think I picked them to go to the playoffs anyway. So I think a lot of people were saying that the Broncos were a quarterback away, and I still think they're a quarterback away. I think we're going to see what Teddy Bridgewater's made of in the next coming games. So especially, and then down the stretch, they have 3 straight division games, I believe, to end the season. So, and 2 of them are on the road. So it's going to be interesting. But I think the defense is just fine. The defense is going to be one of the top defenses in the league. It's just their schedule. They have some tough games on their schedule after the first 3 easy games. But if I had to pick a team, just because of injuries and I didn't pick them to go to the playoffs anyway, and that was the Panthers. I'm picking the Broncos. So,
okay. So the good thing about this is, for the Raiders, Broncos, and Panthers, 2 teams I picked on the cusp of going to the playoffs. Makes me know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And the third team, I don't think it's going to go. All right. So the 2 teams I think that are going to go, I have real potential, are the Panthers and Broncos. The Panthers, they do have a soft schedule, and by the time McCaffrey comes back, their schedule gets tough. But if they are able to continue to do what they're doing and winning games, they look like Sam Darnold looks like he's getting more comfortable every week in that system. They look coached, ready to play, and that defense is playing great. If they can, Craig said 9 games. If they are 7-2 or 8-1, it's likely that they're going to go to the playoffs, right? Even though the back end is tough, but if they play enough and they win these winnable games, they could be considered a playoff teams. Now the Broncos, as another team I had on the cusp of fighting for a playoff spot. Now Teddy Bridgewater's, he's doing what he came to do. Now, I think the difference between him and last year and this year is just the defense. Carolina's defense was as good as it was last year. And I think that's what Teddy Bridgewater needs. Like 90% of the other quarterbacks in the NFL is that he needs a defense, a running game, and a good receiver. Like, I think that to succeed in the NFL, that's kind of what you need. Right now, he's proven to just be a decent quarterback. But Craig, you said it. I think they're a quarterback away. They'll be in Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes next year. Then we'll really talk. But I right now they're just playing good, and they have 2 things. They have a great defense and a running game, and Carolina. I don't know what Carolina running game, but I can imagine it's good, because even without Christian McCaffrey, they run the ball. They're a good running team. So I think that good defense and a running team, and a good defense and a good running back and a running game carries you through the season. It hides a lot of deficiencies until you get to the playoffs. So that's why I think they're going to make it to the playoffs. The Raiders. No. They're not. They were 2-1 last year, and they should be 2-1 this year. So no, I don't think they are going to make the playoffs. I think what's going to happen is exactly what happened last year. They're going to be like, oh, the Raiders look good, and then they're just going to break down, and they're just going to lose like 8 games in a row, and everybody's going to be like, oh, these are the same Raiders that we knew. That's what happened last year. They were 6-3, and they crumbled, and that's why I'm so leery of picking them. Right, like, oh, Raiders go to the playoffs. They're 6-3. And then crumbled. Down goes Frazier. So I have to see a lot more. I have to see a lot more. I don't know if this is sustainable. Derek Carr throwing for 400 yards and defense when nobody's playing lights out. Like this is a weird NFL season. So it's starting out crazy. So that's what I think. All right. Actually, I'm gonna do this one. Wow, what's up? What do you think, Craig? You don't think
I'm just
collapse,
I'm not really gonna give Teddy Bridgewater any credit, but I will say that he didn't have Chris McCaffrey last year. Huh?
I think he's just like an average,
He's been average. I'm just saying, like I will say that he didn't have Christian McCaffrey last year. He didn't have a good as defense as he got this year. He just pretty much had to deal with what he had to deal with, and it wasn't good enough.
But I think
he didn't play.
90% of quarterbacks had that. They'd be good. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, so I think he's doing what he has to do. I think he'll be fine if he gets whenever he gets Judy back. That's another wide receiver that he'll have to throw the ball to, and I think they'll be fine. And the Raiders, like 8 of the last 9 games are just brutal. So yeah, same thing with and like Corey said, they said the same thing. Like both Panthers and the Raiders have brutal back half schedule. So,
but I think the difference between you and the Raiders is that I think that your schedule's soft enough, and I think your defense is better, and you're more well-balanced team that you can. I had y'all on the cusp. If y'all could, y'all might be able to get there. I'm just saying, like I would have more belief in that.
Panthers just can't score. That's the only thing. They can't really put up points. 19 on the Jets. Granted, it was first game of the season, but 19 on the Jets, 24, even though they lost CMC, 24 against the Texans with a rookie quarterback, so they just don't score enough. But this week's gonna be tough for them.
Oh, okay, y'all gonna get the Cowboys some work.
Mm.
We're gonna talk about that later.